Good morning. Thank you, Asta, Siddharth, and the Architects Diary team for bringing Elev8 to Bangalore, here to Sabha, and for inviting me to speak. It's always a bit tricky to have an architectural event here. I hope the air conditioning works and there's electricity and all of that. But welcome to Sabha, and thank you for bringing Elev8 to Bangalore. Sunitha, my partner, and I are very excited to be invited. It's a stellar lineup for the next 2 days. Some of our heroes are speaking later this evening and tomorrow, and so it's going to be a great couple of days with wonderful sessions. Um, so I just wanted to start with three encounters, so to speak, as I was studying architecture here in Bangalore at BMS. The first is, Mamta P. Raj, Dr. Mamta P. Raj, who's now the director at BMS, started her teaching career when I was a student, and she taught us history. And I don't know why, but she picked out LouisIKahn when I was in my second year and said that I would have to present on LouisIKahn to the class. And it's the first time I'd heard that name. I mean, to be fair, this engagement with Kahn has held me in good stead for what 30 years now. I'm still sort of looking at Kahn, at his work, at his writings, and it constantly is an incredible source of inspiration and enlightenment. And so sometimes in college, these sort of random things that happen can take you for a very long time, effectively. So keep your eyes and ears open. The second is, we were doing the D.Y. Patil Trophy for NASA, and Nagaraj Vastare, who's a practicing architect, who was 2 years senior to me, said that, what you're doing for D.Y. Patil, maybe you should go and see this building, on Bannerghatta Road, which was at that point outside the city, far away from civilization, that we should go and see this building, and maybe there was something there to further our study for this trophy, for the NASA trophy. And again, that engagement, that first time, Thomas and I, my classmate and I, went to IIM, and I still remember standing at the foot of that incredible corridor, seeing for the first time this building, and it's like you encounter something that then is both completely surprising and it charges you up, but it is also familiar in a sort of unsaid, unrecognizable way, that you're there, you encounter something, and it happens to us when we go to these old monuments, that there's this recognition but also this incredible surprise. So that building, again, like Kahn, has offered me a constant source of inspiration. In fact, there are many details here in this building also that have come from readings at IIM. A little, the corner of a staircase, or the way the railing meets the floor, or the way that the sill of the window works, etc. That IIM is an encyclopedia of these incredible details that Professor Kajjar developed at Doshi's office. So this is a compendium of ideas at that scale, but also a building that exists as a diagram, as a conceptual diagram. And the third really sort of foundational experience for me was this encounter with Professor Varkey. So I was doing my thesis, and I happened to be in Ahmedabad because Professor Varkey and a gang of his students had come to NASA when we were presenting. And after the presentation, he casually said, why don't you come to Ahmedabad and show us what you're doing, because we do things a little differently in Ahmedabad. And I said, okay, chalo, that's cool. Of course, we were, from the provinces, and we would go to Ahmedabad and raid the library every once in a while. And so this invitation to Ahmedabad was a kind of validation in a way that, wow, we're going to be on hallowed ground, invited now, for the first time. And I took that exercise, I took that excuse to spend, a couple of days with him. And I was at that point working on my thesis. And again, this encounter, this book of sketches, I have a few pages of his drawings. But I mean, fundamental things that he probably taught his second year students, they served as the foundation for my sort of relearning what architecture could be, the engagement of the building with its place, this simple way to analyze existing conditions. I was doing a study in Banganga, and then, he just sort of charted out the whole analysis and documentation part that would then lead me to design. And so these three encounters have been sort of foundational. And so as young students who are in college, sometimes, you get these opportunities which can then take you for a very long way in professional life. So keep your eyes open. Apart from these three, of course, Bangalore at that point, when we were in Bangalore, it was an incredible time of architectural production. There were fantastic professionals here, and there was a group called the Base Group, which was, I think, the Bangalore Architectural Society of Education. It had some kind of really nondescript, but it's real. The abbreviation really stood for Beer and Slide Evenings. And what they would do is they would travel, this group. So there's, of course, Sanjay Mohe, Sharad Padalkar, Prem Chandavakar, the Navnath and Shankar Kanade, the Kanade brothers, Nikhil Arni, Claire Arni, Edgar Di Mello. So this group of people who basically just without structure, they would meet to discuss the things that they saw when they traveled together. And all of us would get wind of, there's alcohol at Nikhil's place, or there's music here. And in the pursuit of these luxuries of life, we would encounter architects talking about architecture with real passion, arguing as if your life depended on it. That was it Kahn, was it Cobb, or is it postmodernism really, or this kind of really inane, not inane, but seemingly sort of not that critical, but really critical. And so to engage with professionals like that, to be in the company of someone who's really sort of thinking about architecture deeply, that stayed with me. And so we were very lucky. I mean, there's a whole bunch of us who practice in the city now who had these encounters with the Base Group, and who in this sort of informal environment learned everything there was to learn about what it is to practice and to really, to get a sense of what architecture may be. So that's, this group. You can see some of them here. These are Claire's lovely photographs. On the extreme left is Edgar and Shankar, looking very dapper, white and beige, the architect's uniform. I think that's, I don't know where that is, but then the next image is Nikhil and Claire, and then the Navnath brother, Navnath is no more. Shankar still lives in near Sangli. And there's Mohan Bopaya, Nikhil Arni, Edgar, and Sharad Padalkar in the slide on the right. There's Dubey in the image on the bottom, sort of looking up at the camera, one of our great teachers. And Mohe in the last image on the extreme right, young dapper Mohe. He still looks pretty much the same. He just turned 70. It's like magic. Yeah, so great teachers, and in that informal setting, just like Kahn described it, this idea that you would engage with people without knowing who the teacher is and who the student is, that you are together in this search for what is of value. And that was really the Base Group. And this idea of genius. So genius is this word about, to reject the idea of genius, that the real truth comes out of an engagement with many people. And that we learned firsthand, because at BMS we had very few teachers. We had, of course, Mr. Dubey, Mr. Dinesh Varma, Mamta was there. But by and large, we were left to our own devices. We didn't have a semester system. It was just, you had 1 year, so you would work for the last 2 months of the year. But the rest of the time, you were just in SLV or traveling, just seeing things, meeting people. And so this group, this image on the left is, I mean, there are lots of great architects in that image. There's, of course, Manoj Ladar, Guru, Sandeep, Jay, who they're all paradigm partners. Vimal, who passed away recently, and Nagaraj in the middle, the sort of guru for all of us, who told us what was the right way. It was all black and white, very clear. And this is just working on NASA late at night at BMS. And then on the right is this group of teachers I encountered at MIT. Again, this idea, this notion that it was a peer learning, that the teachers were in it also to kind of figure out things with you. So Stan Anderson, Julian Beinart, and Attilio, great teachers, people who really sort of furthered my own understanding of things. And Ching Yi on the right, my great friend at MIT. And this genius can lead to many great things. So the image on the left is Suni is in front of me. We just won the NASA trophy. So NASA is really critically important. So Suni and I sort of worked on this trophy with, of course, a whole bunch of others, Radha, Varsha, Rashmi, and Harish. And then on the right, again, this MIT seniors with a whole bunch of people from all over the world. And so when kids come to say, should I do a graduate education, I'd say it's a good idea if you have the money for it. Because in a way, going out of the country, going away from your comfort zone brings you a way to look back at your own sort of situation. It's like what Rushdie says, that that distance, when you're in India, you're too close to the screen and you can only see dancing pixels. And as you move further and further away, the image kind of becomes clear. And this distance gives you a way to look back at where you're from, what your prejudices are, what your predilections are. And you evaluate who you are in those definitions that, people ask you, what's it about? What's it like to be in Bangalore? What are your values? All of this has to come to bear in these conversations that you're having from people from different cultures. So this seniors, this group, and all of us have experienced it in college, how, as a group, sometimes the sublime is produced through this kind of coming together of people. And Suni and I worked in the US as well. So I worked with Fred Koetter, the great Fred Koetter, who wrote the book with Colin Rowe and Susie Kim. Fred had this amazing awareness of cities. All of his architecture was in this idea as continuum, as a way to extend conditions of the city. It was an amazing time, and everything that we do in our practice now, this kind of iterative, model making preoccupation that we have, in the search of trying to establish what one is going to experience. That this was at the root of that work that Fred and Susie did. I also worked with with Jaque and Alex Cooper and Jaque Roberson. Jaque, incredibly sophisticated, a man of the world, knew everything about everything, a wonderful sort of person to have as a boss. And Alex, who was a master salesman and just was able to sort of figure things out on the fly, agile, quick-witted, really an amazing businessman. I mean, these are all important lessons for an architect as you start practice. What is it to operate as an academic or as a person interested in the theoretical aspects of architecture, but also to operate a business and to operate a practice. And Alex was fantastic. And Suni had this amazing job in New York, which is why we moved to New York to work at, with Harry Brown on the houses at Sagaponic. 30 odd houses that Richard Meyer had curated, all the big names. And so she's in the trenches with Philip Johnson and Zaha Hadid and Hariri, figuring out these designs for these buildings that were a critique of the McMansion. Small buildings on small lots in the Hamptons, as a way to say that the great house doesn't have to be 20,000 square feet, that you can have a great house in a small footprint. And that was also a great learning, for her in terms of how you engage on design, but also look at it as a way to do things that have, larger meaning. Those are Fred's drawings at the bottom, and I shamelessly copy it. I draw exactly like that now, which is only to be expected. And then you come to India, and of course in America, everything is clear. Like really, the onus of producing the great work is on the architect. Like if you come up with a great idea, you can build it. That it is on you, the onus. At least that's the way that I thought that this worked. That Fred had the big idea, Fred worked on it, and then there was this beautiful building with this amazing idea for a plan. And then you come to India, and we start practice, and we realize that everybody has a good idea. That the client has a good idea, his brother-in-law has a good idea, the contractor has great ideas. And so the real job of an architect is assimilation. And it isn't really about the great sketch or the great idea or the epiphany, but it is about the trench. It is about spending time together and trying to figure out how to work without an ego to come to something of value. We've learned that very late in life with the BIC, but this is the essential work that you do in India, that you're basically negotiating, maybe a kind of unfortunate word, but it is to find middle ground or common ground, as David Chipperfield says. And so these are all images. This is Vivek Vilasani's great set of photographs, Gulf Dreams or Fever Dreams, I don't know what it's called, Housing Dreams. And everybody wants their shade of pink and their shade of blue. And so we're trying to figure out a middle ground, and I wonder what that is. So we started our practice with these tsunami relief buildings for Hope Foundation. This has had a profound impact on the way we work, built on very tight budgets, around 500 rupees a square foot, and working with local contracting teams. We learned very early on to think of our work as a result of observation, assimilation, and most importantly, collaboration. So we had some amazing local contractors. We had almost no money at all. And so being the first projects that we'd ever done physically, I mean ourselves, we depended on our contractors for everything. And so they brought so many of these solutions to us. They reintroduced us to Baker, telling us about rat trap bonds and filler slabs and all of these strategies by which to try and figure out a way to reduce cost, but also then magically address climate. That embedded in it were these solutions to the two core problems that we were facing with these projects. So this idea of collaboration and the coming together of people, really our studio 100 Hands that Suni and I run is a place for this kind of confluence. Now it isn't a very easy office to work. I think some of our people are here in the office, in the crowd. It is a contentious, often messy, often chaotic sort of environment, but we are looking always to figure out what is the right thing to do. And that can come from anywhere. That clue of what is the right thing to do can come from anywhere. So one is always alert. One is always putting in the time to figure that out through the exercise or through these random. So this idea of melange, hodgepodge, a bit of this and a bit of that, that is how newness enters the world, as Rashti says. And in the next 2 days, you will see that that newness, that new thing is here in Bangalore. That there are incredible practices because of the nature of the city, the idea of density as a catalyst for creative growth. That something is in the water in Bangalore, that there's amazing creative energy here, and there's something new happening everywhere in the city. So that's incredible that we're here, working here in this environment. So working in architecture as a practitioner is a bit of a slog, to be honest. Long periods of doubt, consumed by the fog, and the ways unclear and the goals obscured. But occasionally, the parting of the clouds and brilliant light in those moments of epiphany and realization. And as practitioners, we live for those moments of clarity when universal expression finds a conduit, so to speak. I graduated in 1994. That's a very, very long time ago. And that world of 30 years ago seems benign compared to the turbulent and volatile one we live in now. I can draw a straight line from pioneers like Charles Correa and B.V. Doshi to our practice, predicated as they were on context, prudence, empathy, and careful labor. But, of course, these principles are still valid, but added to them today, we need, some more crutches on which to found our work. This idea of morality, what is the right thing to do? The idea of speed, that things are changing rapidly, and so how do you quickly adapt? And this idea of agility, that the tools that we use to build things, the way things may be built, that all of that, there is a groundswell coming. And so how do we operate? Given that we have these lessons from our masters, what are the new things we need to think about? I would like to suggest that architecture at its most fundamental is still the making of places for well-being, as Richard Laplace, the great Australian master, once said. It is easy to lose sight of this when faced with such existential and profound change. Here are 4 ideas that may offer respite from the ubiquitous and banal work that is produced in the name of sustainability these days. Clever material choices, checklists, and certificates masquerading as architecture. We must consider the difficult pursuit of beauty and meaning rather than just mere sustenance and accreditation, more so now than ever before. So the first idea is the idea of tectonic beauty, or the adoration of the joint, as Frampton once put it, talking about Scarpa's work. So over the course of 20 years, we've come to believe that the careful putting together of buildings with adequate tolerances and the creative appropriation of the accidental, the handmade, and the imprecise results in an architecture that recognizes the passage of time and the value of a shared authorship. We enjoy figuring out how the various bits that make a building come together, structure, fenestration, material, and so on, their composition and relationships, the reveals, tolerances, and inflections establishing primacy, hierarchy, and a sense of order, but they critically help accommodate movement, change, and weathering. This guest house for a stone processing factory is sheathed with delicately fashioned granite slivers fixed tentatively to the southern facade, almost like a timber screen. protecting the building from the harsh Hosur sun, bringing us an awareness of the counterintuitive lightness of the screen and the wonders that are possible probably only in this factory. So this is in Hosur, and these slivers are made out of what is a viscon white granite, and they are very, very slender. They taper to a 12 tip from a 50 back, and they're mounted on a metal frame just as a protection to the light that is coming from the south. So it's a very simple device, but it is particular to this place and what is possible from in this factory. The design of this retail store on a defunct factory site recalls the memories of this industrial past through the preservation of some of the old peripheral walls and the ordered linear organization of the plan. The experience of these two conditions is heightened by the archaic weight uh, of the opaque and ponderous brick elements and the pristine articulation of the metal structure. A conversation between stereotomic and tectonic. So this is a project that we did with B.L. Manjunath, the genius structural engineer here in Bangalore. And really this conversation is heightened by the delicacy of what he produced in terms of the structure of the steel. And that the weight of this, all of the back of house elements are housed in these very, very heavy, almost without any fenestration, these brick mounds. And inserted into that is this very, very slender, light structure. And so both these conditions are heightened because of this contrast and this juxtaposition. So there's that kind of conversation between the two kinds of things. And then there are gardens and water. And of course, in Bangalore, luckily, so far at least, the air quality isn't as, it's going to get worse. But right now, it's a lot of spaces that are just basically shade. And you sit under the shade, and there are cafes and places to mingle. And so this is the back of the building where there's the service stair tower and some more of that steel. All of this has now been occupied with various offices and retail. Nestled in a gully overlooking the archaic Nandi Hills is the Nandi House, which is a series of intimate perches from where to look out onto the hill and the protected forests around. The choice of the materials and the porosity of the surface respond to where we are in relationship to this prospect. And on moonlit nights, with the large glazed panels open, the shimmering silhouettes of the hill is all one sees, almost as if we were camping in the gully. So set in an incredible site that our client found, with prospect out, undisturbed probably for forever. There's nothing around here, and so the communal garden is at the foot of this building, and so you get this uninterrupted view of the hill, and that really is what makes the plan of the house, looking out onto this range, this prehistoric range of hills. And the building offers a very, very low scale onto the street. It's a very, very, it looks like almost a single-story building. It's a very large house. But as you come in, into the building, you step down into the garden and through those main doors into the large hall, and you get this amazing view of the hill. So these are the sort of components that frame that view out into the landscape. The master bedroom up on top with this large terrace, and then the living room itself, which is basically a grand room with a view. I mean, there's really nothing much else, and it creates this wonderful connection out onto the horizon. And every room sort of opens out into gardens, uninterrupted views out. It's just, I mean, that was the last site I think that was sold on this property. Nobody really had the imagination, and our client sort of saw it and just picked it up right away, knowing that there was this amazing potential for it. That's from the master bedroom. Yeah. Deep meaning, or search for meaning. As we imagine and describe our production as architects these days, we often speak of it in terms of technique and strategies, material choices, structural ingenuity, LEED accreditation, etc. We rarely discuss what LouisIKahn called the nature of architecture, going back to the origins. These metaphors make evident the latent and embedded conditions in a given site, within a given culture, for a given program. In his seminal essay, The Origin of the Work of Man, Martin Heidegger talks about architecture as the giver of presence. making us aware through its permanence, its stasis, all that is turbulent and changing and latent in its context. It's amazing when we encounter these old buildings like this temple at Paestum, or so many temples and palaces, or fortresses that we encounter in India, that in their permanence somehow you're suddenly made aware of all the things that have changed since 5th century BC, just civilizational changes. And this building has been silent witness in its permanence to all of that. And so it suddenly brings to bear what is latent and hidden over a long period of time. We must try and articulate the abiding metaphor that encapsulates the circumstances that we are presented with in our projects. These can be simple and personal, like in that wonderful wall in Alto's summer house, a small blue tiled square on the right there, embedded in the wall of red brick, bringing Alto the warmth of the Italian Riviera in the harsh Finnish winter. That little window, complete with a lintel, that window with a lintel and the blue tile, is Alto's sort of metaphorical connection to the Italian Riviera in winter. It's sort of a personal memory that brings him a little bit of warmth. But it could also be profound, like at Sikandra, Akbar's tomb in Sikandra, the tomb becoming a portal to another realm through manipulation of embellishment, sensory stimuli, giving us for a fleeting moment an audience with that great man. So in this building, you're going through a series of these incredibly ornate gates, a fantastic garden. There are impalas running around in the garden. You come through another gate. You're in this room with gold foil and turquoise. And then suddenly, you're in this chamber with almost no light, with no embellishment, no texture. And you're in this room where the sarcophagus, where the actual body has been interred. And this architectural maneuver, these transitions and change of scale, somehow seem to take you into another realm. I mean, this amazing experience of being transported into this waiting station where Akbar may be still waiting for Gabriel to come and take him to the heavens. It's quite amazing. We took our kids there. They're frolicking all over the place, and the moment they come through this passage and into that room, you feel it. It's amazing. But imagine that job, and a guy comes to you at the office and says, "Build me a waiting station." I'm waiting for that client, and that's why we can't do work like that. So we need a commission. But yeah, this is this idea of a profound quality in buildings. We seek to express meaning through allusion. Utsun summoned the platform, the South American platforms, and the Aboriginal headlands in the Opera House. And Doshi spoke of the great Madurai temple and the idea of liminal space for the IIM Bangalore campus. And in a few recent institutional buildings, we use Kahn's metaphor of the man under the tree to create rich in-between places full of light and air for chance encounters and the casual interactions that lead to real learning. These places of pause are varied in scale and enclosure, allowing multiple ways of inhabitation and exchange, from gossip to performance, a society of rooms and a community of learners. These projects are enriched by the space between programs, often benignly called circulation by so many of our clients, offering us opportunities for negotiating the site, places to meet friends, for chance encounters, and possibly as portals to heightened experience. So really, for a lot of the institutional work that we do, the heart of the project is in that space between program. So the BIC is all about that. What happens between program? How is it articulated? What are the different ways in which people can occupy and inhabit that space? And so to give that experience meaning. So this is a small Montessori school that we did in the south in Jaynagar, and it's on a site that has been leased by our client, and so the building envelope is predicated by the FSI and the regulations, and so it's a very, very simple building envelope, but within the envelope we've created, so the building is very simple, it sort of just extrudes what is allowable in the city, but inside the building is this really wonderful environment for kids, for overlook. Really the heart of the project is the stuff that's happening between program. Connections to the landscape, places for prospect and quiet places for refuge. And by setting in the envelope of the building by around 3 feet, we create a little buffer on the edge of the building, which then seems like that it seems like these rooms are embedded in gardens, because lovely that we had these large rain trees on the periphery of our site as well, but the rooms seem embedded in green. This is Neve. And so when we were commissioned to do this small preschool for Kavita, we came up with a plan which is kind of our default single loaded corridor with gardens in the middle, and that's a wonderful plan. And then Correa visited the office, and he saw lying on my table this thing on the mat building by Alison Smithson. And he said, "Oh, the mat building." And we spoke for like an hour about the mat building. He said, "Isn't that an amazing idea?" And of course, the Gandhi Smarak is a mat, and there are so many. The IIM Bangalore is a mat. This idea that there's some kind of a frame, structural or circulation or services that forms the framework on which then program is attached. And so that's the Berlin Open University plan, the idea of circulation and the frame, and then program attached to that over time. And immediately the next day, as a good student, I changed the plan. And I made a mat. And I told Kavita, I think we need to, and we've already spent a month, and we have it's a 6-month project. We have to finish it in 6 months because her kids are going to join. And she looks at the drawing and she says, "How long does it take?" Now you have her, because when she asks you how long is it going to take, it means that she's interested. And so we went into it, and it was amazing. That one chance encounter with Correa and this discussion on the mat, and we changed everything. So the idea is that the building is predicated on this frame. There are gardens and water and sort of in-between space that is then enmeshed with the program, and all of it covered with this sort of parasol roof that gave you shade and protection underneath. And so really the section on the left is the first section that we drew to tell her about it, that there would be these terraces and platforms and staircases, and above it we'd have this light parasol. And so that's the plan, 50%. And really Kavita has a big part to play in this, because she was the one who told us about their pedagogy, that they want to spend a lot of time outside the classroom doing other things other than sort of, the sort of prescribed learning. And so the building is really predicated on the quality and form of what is outside of the classroom building, So that's the plan. And you can see that it's a very, very simple grid. It's predicated on the size of the classroom, 600 square feet. All of us have done this. And this, by shifting that plan around, I mean, in a way, it's like the Gandhi Smarak of G+1. And it sort of then creates a variation in the way that the scales work in sections. So in the previous one, whatever is light gray is double height. Whatever is single gray is single height, has program above it. And then here, whatever is white is open up to the parasol. And so, that idea that there's a platform at the bottom, a kind of change, and then this parasol roof above. And really the heart of the school is this space in between where, they do all kinds of stuff, play table tennis or have book fairs or storytelling sessions. That's the heart of it. These are pictures that my brother took of the school, and Anna Rose, I don't know if she's here, but she took these amazing photographs. But we also separated out the profane world from the sacred world inside the school with this moat. And so there's a figural transition from the outside into the sanctum of the school. And there are tortoises and terrapins and all kinds of stuff in that water. And then you come into the heart of the school, and it's this wonderful world that you don't anticipate, which is benignly lit and has all of the breezes flowing through it by opening the south and the west, and we get all of this diffused air across a diagonal in plan, that you get this really comfortable place to occupy. So this is Neve. I'm going to rush a bit. This is Ira, another school. Again, there's one idea in all of these projects, so take that idea and run with it as far as you can. But Ira is also predicated on the idea of the in-between space, and so that yellow stuff that is running through the plan. So on the outside is a very simple framed structure with the stabilized block infill, with a lot of lovely landscape that Santosh and his team at Threefold Design did. We had an amazing architect on this, a boy called Orko. He came when we started the project and left just after it was done. So it was like God sent. He did almost everything on this. And it's I mean, from the outside it's pretty nondescript, but on the inside it's got this lovely environment, completely naturally lit and naturally ventilated, that offers all kinds of scales for inhabitation, for large performances, for the quiet ones, for refuge, all with varying shades of light filtering through. These are some drawings by Surubi early on in the process. And this notion of layered, sort of in terms of just handling the light so that you got a real sense of darkness and light within that environment. So this is Ira and the big amphitheater with the skylight. Luckily, the building is also north-south oriented, and so you get this really soft light within the building. Yeah, we had a really tough contractor on this project, and we've done now phase 1, we've done phase 2, phase 3, and now the concrete is amazing, but the design's not that great. So we were telling Kumar that if only we had got your act together with what we were doing early on, because some of that concrete's pretty nasty. But you work with it. Yeah. And then the last, this is IISc, which we've recently completed, which is two of the offices have been occupied now with tenants. And it's a very convoluted plan because of the large trees that we had at site. So the building plan, the plan sort of inflects to receive these buildings into gardens and places for gathering. The yellow that you see is really, again, this kind of really variegated section. It has quality, it has light. And whatever's outside of it is all made in steel. So that central portion is all in concrete, and then it's the steel appendages that connect to it. So by making that center in concrete, we were able to avoid all of the beams and just have a flat slab. And then there's this really, light steel structure that then houses all of the laboratories. So that's where you enter the building. It's got this kind of really systematic organization in terms of structure, but really, again, like Ira, like Neve, it's what is at the heart of the building that really is what was important for us. This really sort of articulated section within the building, and these early drawings that trying to sort of simulate what it is we want to achieve with that internal space. And so as you come into the bottom, underneath that oculus, through the turnstiles, and you're in the heart of this building, which has got a real real variation in terms of the way that light comes into the building, and these amazing connections with these fantastic old trees on the side. Now this is a laboratory and classroom building, and so it's all completely controlled in terms of the environment. And so sorry, thanks. Yeah, so some more images of that inside space with all of its quality and light. Yeah. Okay. And the third, so we've got 4. We're on the third one, so we're almost there. Historical sense or resonant beauty. In his seminal essay, Tradition and the Individual Talent, T.S. Eliot talks about the central paradox of the creative pursuit. On the one hand, it is to find the new, an expression of our time, the zeitgeist, and on the other hand, it draws from the past for instruction, but also for us to understand the effect our new work has on the canon. Charles Correa completed the Champalimaud Center for the Unknown in Lisbon in 2011. It is a state-of-the-art medical facility guided by some of the best scientists in the world. The recognition of the importance of this location, where the river Tagus meets the Atlantic Ocean, and from where intrepid explorers like Henry the Navigator and Vasco da Gama hung a left out into the unknown, gives Correa's idea of opening up the center of the campus with a large ascending plaza out into the ocean incredible gravitas. It at once makes a deep connection back to history, to these explorers. It gives context to our enduring tryst with the unknown and the ongoing research into the unknown within this facility. So this one move makes evident this location and a recognition of this location. And it makes this connection between what is happening with the scientists in their search and this, exploration that happened in the past. We worked with Allies and Morrison on a competition entry for Nalanda University in Bihar. Our proposal drew deep inspiration from the site, responding in specific ways to the local conditions, and it sought to create a simulacrum of a city, dense, mixed use, and with a memorable pedestrian network of streets and open spaces. The simple, almost archetypal buildings, like those massive cloisters in the ancient Nalanda ruins, organized to achieve complex, rich in-between spaces. So these are the ruins in Nalanda. You can see that, they're amazing sort of large brick mounds with these cloisters within them. But what's really amazing about this is the stuff that happens between these mounds and these kinds of spaces that you see that have incredible quality, and they're shaded and comfortable to use. That we were really sort of playing on this idea of archetypal form and really articulated in between space. So both these conditions are true. It was also a mixed use campus, and so we were trying to make it a simulacrum of a city rather than putting housing on one end of the site, this 500-acre site. We put everything up against each other so that that central spine was always activated with people and with events, very unlike campuses today. And so this idea that it brings to mind both the physical experience of that ancient campus, but it was also a metaphorical notion of the threshold as the space of possibility. That really, again, like IISc and NEEV and IRA and all of the other projects, that really we were interested in that in-between stuff and what the quality and texture of that was. We did this amazing dining block. We were totally gutted to lose. Vastu Shilpa won this competition. But sometimes it's good to lose because you can say, oh, this would have been so much better. So this is Nalanda. We also did a competition for a sports university in Bihar, and again we went back to Nalanda, to the idea of the ruin and the idea that in the sports facility. So that first idea was really what drove the project. That you had these large multi-purpose halls with north lights made out of steel, most probably because you had large span structures, and we were wondering how to scale these appropriately so that it sort of didn't sit in that flat landscape and made a big imposition, And so we wrapped these buildings with ruins, as Kahn used to say, and in those ruins are all of the attending facilities, the coaches' rooms, the toilets, the spa, the massage rooms, etc. And the big hall was then sort of mediated as it encountered the landscape, or as you encountered it, that there was this kind of much softer scaled texture that you encountered. And we made this lovely drawing where the ruins of Nalanda, and then in that embedded is this large hall, that somehow the quality and texture of this handmade thing was what we encountered as you moved through the campus. And so you can see that, I worked with Kiran Kumar, a wonderful architect from Mysore, who teaches at WCFA. Just an amazing collaborator. And really, so many of that sketch on top is his. I mean, so many of these ideas come from him. And so this notion of really encountering the handmade as you made your way through that landscape. Again, we lost this competition, but this would have been amazing. And instead, crediting it to the scene, that it is really the coming together, and sometimes, like at Sabha, like at the BIC, that by magic it aligns. There's amazing people on the other side without ego coming at it in the best interest of the project. But oftentimes it's us architects who have the problem. We are, in some sense, our default condition is resistance. And I think we have to figure that out quickly to make something of meaning. That really the great value may come from outside of us. So, even LouisIKahn, the great hero of mine, had to encounter a client, had to encounter a site, and had to encounter budgets to come to the sublime. So this is a project that he did in Philadelphia, just outside in Media. He started off with that image on the left, which is his default plan. Accommodation, a large garden, and the public uses, the church, the refectory, the classrooms. And so the separation of the big yard, Kahn was thinking, what is a monastery? And he always thought that the courtyard was what the monastery was about, this space between things. And as he went to so he had $5 million, he had that first scheme and it was $5 million. And then the nuns told him that we have only $1 million, so see you in 2 weeks. And Kahn went away and he's figuring out what to do with this project. And he's doing everything that all of us do, right? He's down Xeroxing the plans and all that. There's this wonderful blueprint which has the same plan but 10% smaller, just in an effort to reduce. All of us struggle with these things, but they're not really, they bring Kahn to that last plan on the right. And what's amazing about that last plan is it encapsulates what the Dominican order is about. It collapses the separation between spiritual life, the personal life that the nuns lead, and their public engagement. It brings together in the plan this unity of their conception of what their life is about, that there is no separation between their sacred spiritual life and their engagement with community. So what was the next logical step in this project? They canceled the project. And they said, we don't need a building, we should go out and be in the community. And there's this wonderful letter that the mother writes to Kahn and says, due to changes in the way that we see ourselves operating in the community, we've decided to scrap the project. And I'd like to think that Kahn pushed them in that direction through this process. So be wary that if you come to the sublime, sometimes you may have no project left. So there's Kahn sort of, struggling away. And there's an amazing book by Michael Merrill on this project. There are 900 drawings in that book. There's one photograph of a model, the only model that Kahn made for this project. But there's this amazing, so it's the same time, this is 1961 to 63, I think, or what is it, 66 to 68. It's just about the time when he's working, or he's kind of really busy with IIM Ahmedabad. He's really busy with the buildings at Bangladesh. You can see those elevations showing up in this project. So like all of us, I mean, Zumthor made that amazing joke, so we all start in the same place, but of course Zumthor lands where he lands, Kahn lands where he lands, but the search and the struggle is the same. They're doing the same things that all of us do and have been taught to do to come to, what is of value. So don't ignore what your teachers are telling you to do, the stuff that you think is meaningless, because everybody is going through that same route. So there's that amazing plan, and this is a new model that Michael Merrill, I think his team made of this amazing building. This is just after the Eshrick House. I think it's the Eshrick House or the Fisher House, but it's also the Bryn Mawr. These are all at the same time Bryn Mawr, dormitories, which are all exercises that Kahn is figuring out how to come to, passage through, a diagonal through the coming together of two archetypal shapes. And this idea of the ambulatory as a way to negotiate that corner. Working again with Alison Morrison on Miraya, mixed-use building in Bangalore, taught us the importance of composition and clarity of plan. Our interior work works to heighten the sense of the underlying order of the structure, revealing its precision and creating moments of clarity, of whimsy. So this is a project that we did with Alison Morrison. There's Suni. This was an amazing opportunity. Gautam Nambishan from UK Properties. Again, just alignment of great people. We had Radhakrishna, this great engineer who worked on IIM Bangalore. He was appointed by Gautam as a site engineer, really responsible for the quality of this amazing building. And of course, Alison Morrison's great gift for laying out a plan, of order in the plan, of creating a plan that then addresses program, it addresses structure, it addresses services, and yet creates a place of incredible quality. So this building had, on the east side, it connected to the landscape, and on the west side, it was completely protected by other uses. So this is on a very, very systematic grid with circulation and also the fire code. I mean, everything organized in this incredible clear diagram. So these are some images of that. We had a beautiful pool on the 5th floor. At that point, we had no neighbors at all, and so you just got the canopy of the trees and the clouds. And then everything here is custom. The great opportunity that still exists in India, that it's almost always cheaper to build custom than to pick out of a catalog. So that's quite something. Coming from America, it was just unbelievable. And so everything here, a lot of the furniture was made here in Bangalore by Ravi Kharab and by some others. Suni did all of the procurement, all of the specification of everything that you see in these photographs. And then up on top, we built a party pad for the person who built this hotel, a house for 1,001 nights, just a series of terraces to have parties and have friends. But this amazing prospect out onto Vartur Lake, and when you're in that pool, the water of the pool and the water of the lake are one. And there is, the foreground vanishes and you get this amazing infinity on that corner. This is the BIC, a public building won in a competition in 2012. The BIC is a valid precedent for the coming together, the constructive coming together of many people and of crowd-funded public institution building, which Bangalore is really famous for. MAP, Science Gallery, Rangashankara, I mean this. And then the Sabha originally was also a privately enabled public institution, we must move away from the idea or the seductive notion of the creation of architecture as a form of immaculate conception and celebrate it as the outcome of a genius. So this project was really tough for us. We thought of quitting many times over the course of doing this project. But at the end of it, you look back at it and you realize that a lot of that angst was coming from a place of ego. That really, if we had engaged more, more effectively, that we may have been quicker at doing it. We had a lot of existential problems on the site with the change in dimension, etc. And then, of course, right after we opened, we hit COVID. And Divyang, this architect who worked in our office, made this drawing as an ode to the time when there were people in the building. And he said, will there ever be any people at BIC? And he drew this amazing, plan and section of it filled with people, in the gallery and in the auditorium. And of course, it's back to running, and we're grateful for that. But there was a time when there was all of these existential problems. So some pictures you guys have all seen the BIC. Varnadhar did all the landscape, an amazing landscape project. Great contractor, Ramesh Babu, SSVC, and Harshit Naik, a great young architect who spent 4 years on this, almost visiting it every day. This is done by Didier Weiss from Auroville, a great acoustic engineer with no budget. This project, till 75% of its construction was built on small donations, ranging from, 35,000 bucks to maybe a couple of lakhs. And so we were doing bits and pieces of the building as money came in. Ravi, of course, magically manifested it. And then when we had done 75% of it, Nandan Nilekani visited the site. And in 15 minutes, we had $1 million. And suddenly we're getting chairs from Malaysia and, lights from wherever, from Japan. It was suddenly a project. And so it was very tedious. But yeah, in the end, we've had 4 Nobel laureates in that auditorium. And so it's also stewardship, that after you build something and you hand it over, actually the life of the building starts then. And all of the stuff is dependent on who the stewards are and how they imagine it. And the BIC has been amazing in that regard, as has been Sabha. Yeah, so this is the BIC. There's Harshit and me on the terrace. And Sabha, to end with Sabha, this is like was mentioned earlier, this is a 160-year-old building. A set of buildings, the one on the right, which is on the road, is older. The pitched roof is probably 100, 120 years old. It's got some metal embellishments, etc. The room that we're in now. And everything that you see on the left, the double pitch and all of that concrete is all new, added at the rear of the project. But, we encountered this building in a really bad state. It hadn't been used for almost 20 years and it was really falling apart. And so we had Professor Vasavada. We had never done a project like this. And so we immediately called Professor Vasavada. He graciously came here for 4 days and he set up the whole process or the protocols by which you document and record what you're seeing before you start doing anything. And we had Sanjana Pandey at the office, a young architect. She was militant about Vasavada's list. And so I would tell her, you've got to do other things in the office. And she's, no, I have this list that I have to finish. I haven't finished it. And she would corral all of the trainees in the office. And we have these amazing drawings that they've taken, just documenting the trees, the damage, structural, water damage, and then peeling off with the contractors to see what's happening behind. We are an amazing team. There's Nilesh in the brown shirt, fantastic contractor with his able ally Prajakta, amazing engineer. And then Shaju, who built this roof that we have above us in yellow in the middle. And there's Professor Vasavada already recording in that first visit everything that he's saying. But also the project is about repurposing things that we removed. So in fact, the first room has all of its beams are new. They're all new timber because it was all sagging beyond a point and they were all in very bad shape. So we removed all of that timber, we shaved it down, and in fact, some of these rafters are made from the wood that we salvaged from there. A lot of the windows are new, made from wood that we salvaged from within the building. The flooring that we ripped out from here and from the other room to replace for underwater drainage, etc., is used in the corridors. You can see all of that black kadapa, etc., is all reused flooring outside. And so it's also a way in which we understood this idea of retrofit, of also repurposing what was already existing. I mean, of course, everything thanks to, the contractors and this wonderful young architect we had in the office. And then, of course, we've had others since who took on the baton and have run with it. But the other, I mean, that image on the extreme right is amazing. I mean, it's completely propped up the roof while they're removing these beams, and they're fixing the base of that column. You can see the column is floating, you know, and they're replacing the base so that, you know, all of that water damage can be fixed. So there's yeah. So this is what the condition was. So just some comparative photographs of the building. It's all lime. And we opened up what was closed off with this wall. We opened up this garden so that the city partakes of this wonderful, you know, relief in the city. Sujata Keshavan, the great graphic designer, did the logo very early on. Yeah, so this is, yeah, of course, you're in the building, so you will see it. But yeah, a lot of the old stuff, it's good to see because you kind of realize the situation we had encountered when we came first. So a lot of this roof, this is this building with the roof all sort of falling apart. And of course now it's, this is also this building, probably that corner, the 3 windows in that corner. It was infested with rats and really in a very bad shape. This is the backyard. And you can see now that backyard with the attached pitch roof. The double pitch is a reference out to the Annavasanthi Library across the road, which also had the monkey tops, and so this is a nice conversation across centuries. And some details, I mean, again, just we drew this all up, but then, you know, we had amazing people to just make this stuff, just, you know, and tell us about it. And this is our team in the office. There's Sanjana on the left with Amriteshwari. They were handling it first. And then Ganga and Ria. Ganga really sort of closed it out and got it home. And Raghu, the amazing Raghu, who was our ally on site here every day. He's probably here today. He's always here. And he will send us pictures when it's raining and saying, we need gutters. Or, you know, we have, you know, so he's an amazing guy. So 4 ideas. Do I have any more time or is that it? Am I way over time? Yeah. Done? Okay. So thank you.